Hi everyone, it's Alexis, the Avoidant therapist. Today we will discuss about self-gaslighting after a breakup. This is a masterclass that I wanted to share on YouTube about self-gaslighting, especially if you're having a hard time right now dealing with a breakup. This is particularly common for people who have an anxious attachment style. We'll discuss about the root cause of this pattern and towards the end, obviously, some key tips and things you could do to help yourself dealing with the aftermath of this breakup. Before that, I will explain two different studies and concepts, fascinating studies about how we function, how our brain helps us to cope with situation in this maladaptive way, which is self-gaslighting. Let's discuss about how we develop self-gaslighting. Childhood invalidation. So it's when we at a younger age, we have been told that we don't have a voice, that what we feel doesn't matter, that what we say doesn't matter. And it forces us to self-doubt. You know, if people I love, people I rely on, are not the people I can speak with, then what does it tell about my voice? Also very prone to people who had trauma or manipulation, whether it's in their childhood or in different relationships. People who are gaslighted usually create these patterns of self-gaslighting. High emotional investment. So when you leave a relationship that was one-sided or perceived as one-sided, of course you feel, okay, I gave my whole. I gave myself to this person. Therefore, it doesn't make sense. And we discuss about making sense of the situation. Therefore, I can't believe the experience that I'm going through. I can't believe my emotions, right? And that's where we confuse sometimes. And this is why it's very important to understand this concept of self-gaslighting. And I will make some videos on this because I don't think there's a lot of videos on this content, on this idea of self-gaslighting, which is part of any sort of grieving process and grieving experiences people go through. And I think it's the same as well in some of the breakup dynamic when we have a difficult breakup. So yeah, breakup triggers, because it triggers the fear of abandonment for people who have an anxious attachment style, for example. And so it's creating, again, this narrative of there's something wrong with me. I can't trust myself. I can't trust my judgment. So this is 4 major reasons how we develop self-gaslighting. Let me explain one key concept. We'll explain 2 key concepts on why we self-gaslight ourselves. Leon Festinger is the father of the theory of cognitive dissonance. He created a very interesting experiment that I will describe in a second. Basically, he found that our brains seek consistency. When we are under stress, when we need to regulate, the first thing we do is we seek consistency. And so when there's a clash between our beliefs, between our reality, we always try to adapt to what feels consistent. Let me explain what it means, and let me explain through his experiment. His experiment, and I'll put some links about his experiment, maybe the Wikipedia page or some other documents in the description of this video. His experiment, he took people and asked them to do something really boring. I think it was you had to turn peg at a regular interval. Really boring task. And he would give people a reward, whether it's $1, $20, or no reward at all. And he would give that reward so people would lie to the next people taking the experiment, telling them it's a very entertaining task that you're gonna do. Okay, so the experiment is very simple. For half an hour or an hour, I don't remember, you would turn the peg, boring task. And then after that, you would be offered one group will have $1, the other group $20, and the next one nothing, to lie to the other participant to say, this is an amazing task, you're gonna have fun. And at the end, he asked people, the participants, how they felt about the task, whether they felt that was actually entertaining or boring. So $1, $20, control group. The people who enjoyed the task, who reported enjoy the task, are the one who lied for $1. So why? There's a cognitive dissonance here, because lying for $1, there's no trade-off, right? I'm okay to lie for $20. In terms of my belief system, I would feel okay lying for $20, and therefore there would be no dissonance. But for $1, I would have a hard time. So I only need to convince myself that actually that was fun. So it's very interesting that when we create this dissonance, we're gonna change our belief system. It's fascinating. When I thought about the result, when I was studying this study, I was like, that doesn't make sense. But if you think about it for a second, and that's the whole point of this self-gaslighting, is the level of dissonance. When it's high, when we have a conflict between a reality, between a belief, this is where we have this dissonance, and this is where we will change our attitude. So that's the first element. And let me know in the comment section if you didn't know about this study. I find it really interesting, and that's why I'm making those videos. Not only talk about breakups, but I think learning about psychology and very fascinating studies about how we function and about our brains. Second, so how the mind tries to reduce the dissonance. We change the beliefs that we discussed. The context of a breakup. Maybe they never loved me. Maybe they were lying all along. We might justify their action. They left me because I was difficult, I was too needy, I asked for too much, I asked for too much commitment. And then we minimize the memories, right? It wasn't that bad. Or we idealize the partner. We magnify the person. So a few examples of dissonance. Before we were happy, they said they loved me. They left, that doesn't make sense. So we have this dissonance creating that emotional pain, right? We have two narratives. One day they love me, next day they disappear. Doesn't make sense. And so what we do is we rewrite the past to cope. And that's why when you discuss with a therapist or with a very close friend, they will also show you this discrepancy, this dissonance, right? And it's going to be helpful for you to discuss things out as well and detach yourself from this narrative, from the beliefs that you're creating to make sense of that reality. That's what we'll discuss today at the end of this video. Signs of cognitive dissonance: confusion. You're not sure about what happened. You're not sure about your feelings. Justification. So you will find excuses in your ex's behaviors, in their actions. You will minimize. That was not that bad. Okay, we could only see each other once a month, but at the end, that was okay. And obviously, and I think that's the most painful one, replaying things, dwelling on the past, obsessing on those conversations, on being stuck in the I should have, could have type of mindset. You might not tick all those boxes, all those signs, but the replaying one is usually the most painful and the one that I see most commonly. Now, you have to remember that you're not lying to yourself because you're weak or stupid. It's not on purpose. Your mind is trying to protect you. Because of this dissonance, you're creating those narratives in your head. The point of this video, the point of this series of video, is to help you recognize self-gaslighting and detach yourself from this mechanism, which is not a helpful mechanism to heal and move forward. Let me talk about Carol Dweck in that sense, on how we can move forward, how we can change this. She has a very famous TED Talk, and I will put the link to her TED Talk in the description, around, I think it's one of the most viewed TED Talk ever. Fixed mindset and growth mindset. If you're not familiar with this concept, she's the one who came up with this concept. When you have a fixed mindset, when something happens and you make a mistake, you assume I have a set of capabilities, I have kind of I'm always at the full potential, and so anything that I do reflect my potential. When you have a growth mindset, you know that you can always learn and improve and change things. So fixed mindset is usually people who feel you're smart, you're stupid, and that's it. Growth mindset is like we're always evolving. From a neuroscientific point of view, we all have a growth mindset. Our brains, because of neuroplasticity, we can always grow, evolve, change. There's no doubt about that. That's a fact. But the way we decide to interpret things can make us fixed our growth mindset. So we can shift. I used to have a fixed mindset because I was raised with this idea of like, you're stupid or you're intelligent, and that's what you get, which is very limiting. It provides a very limiting view of things and also keeps you stuck somehow. And this is, I wanted to discuss about this because self-gaslighting is usually when we have this fixed mindset around ourselves. Let me explain this, this idea of self-gaslighting versus self-reflection. So basically what you're doing and what you should be doing, how we use those words, how we can make it work for us. Fixed mindset, I was too needy, that's why they left. The reflection is, I have an anxious attachment style. It's something I can work on. Okay, it's always about not limiting yourself of, I'm too needy. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's just because you have an anxious attachment style. And this is something you can change. Again, that's what I do for a living. There's plenty of studies show that you can develop a secure attachment style at any age. It's something you can change. They never loved me. I imagine everything. They loved me at one point, but the relationship ended. So it's having also being more subtle in the way you look at things. It's never black or white. It's always more complex than that. It's never just you or only them. It's always 50-50, for example. I ruined it. I should have been better. You both played a role. It's always a dynamic. People always try to find the tipping point, but it's always a succession of events. And so the point of this video, of the work that I'm doing, and all the videos that will come on this self-gaslighting element, it's about learning. Learning, shifting from the self-blame to the reflection. Shifting from, again, being very negative toward yourself to being constructive. When you shift that mindset, you will limit the power of self-gaslighting. You will find yourself in control. You will find yourself with this element of self-efficacy, i.e., I can progress. What happened to me didn't define me as a person. Now, my role as a human being, as someone mature, as someone who wants to work on themselves, watching this video, learning about attachment style, for example, is to implement the right actions for me to grow. That's the whole point. Removing the blame, using that as a fuel for your growth, basically. Few things about the root cause and things about your childhood. So we discussed about the dismissed feelings, which means that you don't trust your emotions. You know, some things that you learn when you're a modern parent, is to validate emotions with your children. So there's this famous book, The Monster of Emotion. You have Inside Out too. So people now know about emotions. You need to talk about emotions with your children. Because then if you don't, their experience of emotion is like, it's not valid. Therefore, I shouldn't trust what I'm feeling. I shouldn't discuss about my feelings. Creating, secondly, the self-doubt. Maybe I'm too sensitive because my emotions are not valid. Therefore, I shouldn't speak up. I shouldn't have those needs. Also creating this idea of neglect, because we need to connect emotionally with people we love. And so we are, I said, like outsourcing reality to others, right? We in a way detach ourselves from our body, from our emotion. And what it creates in adult relationship, over apologizing, people pleasing, second guessing yourself. Let me know, actually, as an adult, the things that you see yourself doing that are not necessarily a healthy reflection of who you are. And that could also come from self-gaslighting. It'd be very interesting to know if you have others than this one. So how early invalidation will affect you in the context of a breakup? The typical stop crying is not a big deal. Again, it means that, you shouldn't cry. It's not valid to cry. It's not, being sad is a sign of weakness. So for me, for many years, I thought crying was a sign of weakness. It's more complex than that. And that's the thing, when you train as a therapist, when you work with a therapist, you know how to label emotions, you know how to process those emotions. You're overreacting, again, was it your fault, was it their fault? With this idea of, yes, usually when you are gaslighted by your partner, you will create sometimes this dynamic of self-gaslighting. I don't have time for this. So it's around availabilities, especially if you're dating an avoidant. It's hard for you to have this availability because they need that space, they need time. So again, it's reinforcing this. And obviously inconsistency, abandonment, and that drives usually the behavior I need to fix the relationship. I need to earn affection. I need to be really good boy, really good girl in order to get that sort of emotional connection. It's kind of conditional. You see, when you're a parent, love should be unconditional. But sometimes, and it's very hard to achieve, sometimes children might feel it's conditional. My father will be proud of me when I get those good grades, etc., etc. The point of this is to help you understand where it's coming from. You don't need to spend hours reflecting on your past. It's just to help you see the narrative, help you see where it's coming from. And now it's really about, okay, what can we do about that? How can we progress? How can we move forward? Quick word on attachment and self-gaslighting. So we have this fear of abandonment. The self-blame is a way also to control, because I'm going to be focusing on myself. I can, they are depressed. My ex is depressed. They have a hard time. I can fix them. That we discussed before. The reality distortion. People who have an anxious attachment style, they tend to distort reality in a way that is usually more negative than it is. And the point is to shift the focus from them to you, from the things that are in the past that you can't control, the should have, could have, to yourself, to your own experience at this point in time, today, not tomorrow, not last week, not when you were together, not what would happen if they reach out, now. Okay, this is a wake-up call for you to take action now. The distorted breakup narratives could be, I was too much. So again, it's the fear of rejection. They were perfect. That's why we select all the good things. And we sometimes ask people like, why were you together in the first place? And people list me all the qualities. And then you just have to prompt people a little bit further, and then you'll see all the negative traits. And 3, they'll never find someone like me. Or I never find someone like them. So again, very much like black or white thing. And attaching your worth to people, right? I felt valued because someone loved me. The point is to challenge those narratives, and there are probably other narratives. This one is the most common ones. The point, should you want to heal, should you want to move forward, is to challenge those narratives. As I said, it's never black or white, it's never extreme, it's never as negative as you think it is. Work through those narratives. We will do some exercise and things online in my community. It's called Circle. Have a look in the description. You can access the conversation. I'm going to create a support group on this. I'm going to host some events in March, if you're watching this video in March 2025, and we'll have some modules. So I've created five modules in total around self-gaslighting. So have a look in the description to access module number 2 to number 5, where I will share with you the methodology. Also on the platform you'll have, on the portal, you have some documents that you can download, worksheets. The point is to really create a practical and